Welcome once again in the class of design of steel structure. So in last lecture, we have seen, or in last lecture we have seen the connections and the introduction to steel structure. So we'll begin with the design of tension members now. I am Mr. S. Sovule, Assistant Professor, Civil Engineering Department. Now, what is tension member? So, a structural member subjected to two pulling, that is tensile forces applied at its ends, is called as a tension member. So, while analyzing truss, you might have come across the members like this having the tensile forces. So, basically those members are called as a tension members, and those have been designed with by using the specification given by the code for the tension members. The members and the connection are so arranged that the eccentricity in the connection and bending stresses on the member are not developed. The stress in such member is assumed to be uniformly distributed over the net section, and hence members subjected to only axial tension are supposed to be the most efficient and economical. So we have seen in case of the joints or the riveted joints particularly that we have the clause in the IS code that all the forces in the member should meet in one particular point when the so many members are meeting at one junction. So same way here, there should not be any eccentricity so that the member should be in fully tension itself. So on the other hand, if the eccentricity exists either due to the member not being perfectly straight or due to eccentricity in the connection, either bending stresses are considered in the design or specification are provided to account the reduction in the net area. So if any bending stresses are there because of some eccentricity or the member is not straight, so the there the result of that is the reduction in net area should be there. So obviously there will be a less load carrying capacity by the particular member. But however, in our syllabus, we are not going to consider that. We are focusing only axial tensile or member those having axial tensile forces. Now, the types of the tension members. So, what are the types of the tension members? First, wire and cables. Wire ropes are exclusively used for hoisting purposes, and the guy wire in steel stacks and towers, strands, and ropes are formed by helical winding of the wire. So, you might have seen the, uh, the wires which are there. Most of the times, we have seen the wires at the electrical near the electrical poles, and those wire are uh, formed that strand and ropes are formed by the helical winding of the wire. Even uh, we have seen the rope that we are using in day to day life, that is called as a kasra in Marathi. So it has also helical winding on the particular, and it is also made up of some small strands of the uh, small threads. So, a strand consists of individual wire wound helically around the central core. These are not recommended in bracing system as they cannot resist the compression. The advantage of wire and cables are flexibility and the strength. So, here you can see we have the two examples over here. That is, first is the cable stayed bridge, that is bridge in which the deck has been held by the with the help of this cables, that is cable straight bridge. And second is the suspension bridge, that is one long cable is there, main cable, and the suspenders are there to hold the deck. So in this case, the strands or the wires having this particularly tension in those, and we have to design it for that tension only. Next is the bars and rods. These are the simplest form of the tension members. Bars and rods are often used as the tension members in bracing system as sag rods to support the purlins between trusses. Presently, these are not a favorite of with the designer because the large dip they cause during the strong winds and disturbing noise induced by the vibrations. So here you can see the sag rods are here. These are the purlins and these are the rods, sag rods. Next, that is plates and flat bars. These are used often as a tension members in transmission towers, footbridge, etc. These are also used in columns to keep the component member in the correct position, that is lacing flats or battening flats or end tablets, etc. So we can see over here the single and built up structural shapes. So the open sections such as angles, channels and T's. These are the angles, these are the T's and these are the channels. The compound and build-up sections such as double angles, double channels with are without additional plates and joined with some connection system. So these are the double angle system which forms a T again. This is channels back to back. These are the star like system or the plus sign like. These are the two angles. Here two channels are there, two to two, and connected with the this plate. This is the eye section, this is built up eye section, and this is the square section made up with the plates. So these are few sections, and here also you can see these are the some shapes of the tension member. Here you can see the single angle connected with the one leg connected, that is with the riveting connection with the gusset plate. This is the gusset plate. Then connected with the welded connection with the gusset plate. This is back to back double angle, that is it is forming a T. So again connection with the rivet, and here the angles on the either side of the gusset plate. So these are the some examples, and here also you can see some shapes of the tension member. Now the permissible stresses. So as per the IS 800 1984, in section 4, where a design of tension member has been specified, so we are having the clause of 4.1, that is axial stress. So the permissible stress in axial tension, that is sigma 80 in MPa on the net effective area of the section shall not exceed sigma 80 equals to zero point 0.6 Fy. So where this Fy equals to minimum yield stress of the steel. So this is the permissible stress which is given by the IS 800 1984. Now the slenderness ratio. So basically the slenderness ratio of is the ratio of a tension member it of its unsupported length, that is L, divided by its least radius of gyration, that is R. So here you can see the maximum slenderness ratio having the formula. This is also the part of this IS 800. We are having clause number 3.7. So in that this it is given. So what it says, the maximum slenderness ratio of the beam, strut or tension member which is given is in this table, that is 3.1, shall not exceed. So in this, L is the effective length of the member which is shown in the 5.2, and R is appropriate radius of gyration of the effective section. So we are having three types of tension member over here. Actually, there is no limitation on the slenderness ratio of tension members since stability is little concern in this case. However, they may be subjected to load reversal during the transportation, shipping, and erection. Load reversal means sometimes we are designing the member for the tension, but due to some unavoidable circumstances, the reversal of stresses has been took place. That is, we are designing the section for the tension, but sometimes it gets some compressive stresses, etc. So this is called as a reversal of stresses, and this might happen in the case of transportation, shipping, erection, etc. So in order to provide the rigidity to prevent this undesirable lateral movement or excessive vibration, design specification usually contain the limiting slenderness ratio for the tension members also. So we are having in this table number 3.1 this 2, that is a tension member in which a reversal of direct stress due to load other than wind or seismic force occur. So the maximum slenderness ratio has been given, that is 180. So here the reversal of direct stress due to loads other than the wind or the seismic forces. So limit is 180. Then second thing is, a member normally act as a tie in a roof truss or a bracing system, but subject to possible reverse of stresses resulting from the action of wind or earthquake. So here other than the earthquake and wind, and here with the action of wind and earthquake. So the maximum slenderness ratio is 350. And last, for the tension member other than pre-tension member, so it is 400. So these are the limits of maximum slenderness ratio. So we have to take the check of the slenderness ratio while designing the tension member also. Now the next part is net sectional area. So the net sectional area of the tension member is the cross sectional area of the member minus the sectional area of maximum number of holes. The stresses in the tension member are calculated on the basis of minimum net cross sectional area available. The reason for considering the net section in the calculation of stresses is the failure of section with the holes. The unit stress in a tension member is increased due to the presence of the hole, even if hole is occupied by the rivet, because the area of steel in which load is distributed is reduced and some concentration of stresses occur along the edges of the hole. But for static loading, this increase in unit stress is neglected because of the yielding, and the effect of stress concentration is nullified, and the tension therefore assumed to be uniformly distributed over a net section, and the net sectional area for various section can be arrived as follows. So first we are going to consider the plates over here. So the net sectional area for the plate members is obtained by deducting the area of rivet hole from the gross sectional area of the plate. So we will consider the first case over here. So suppose this plate is subjected to this pull. So for the net sectional area, that is from the along the section A, B, C, D. So it is nothing but the gross area of this plate, minus the area of rivet holes at B and C. So here we can see A net equals to A gross, that is gross sectional area, minus the sectional area of the holes. So the gross area is B into T, that is width of the plate into thickness of the plate, minus N into dt, that is D is the diameter of the gross diameter of the hole, and T is the thickness of the uh, particular plate. So the here it becomes d minus n dt. So here we have d is the width, n is the number of rivets, d is the cross diameter, and t is the thickness of plate. Now the net sectional area in these case, that is in case of this zigzag riveting, here also one zigzag riveting is there, and here also one zigzag riveting is there. So the zigzag riveting has been provided in this type of uh, connection. So to determine the critical net area, it might seem logical to compute the area along the section, that is along this ABC. So which is less the area of one rivet hole, and then the area of the section along ABDE is the less two rivet holes. So the least of the two values is obtained would be critical value, but this is not the correct, as along the diagonal line BD, this diagonal line BD, there is a combination of direct stress and shear, and somewhat smaller area should be used. The strength of the member along the section ABDE, along the section ABDE is obviously somewhere between the strength obtained by using the net area along ABC and the strength obtained by using the net area along ABDE, that is this line. So IS 800 recommends the empirical formula suggested by VH Cochrane to account these staggered holes. So here you can see this figure. The area deducted is the sum of the sectional area of all holes in a chain of lines extending progressively across the member less this s square t divided by 4g s square t divided by the 4g for each line extending between holes at other than right angles to the direction of stress. The chain line should be chosen so as to produce the maximum deduction. So now the deduction, here you can see the sectional area of the holes minus the sectional area of the hole. Suppose we are choosing this thing, the sectional area of the hole, that is these two, minus s1 square t divided by 4g1. And so here we are only having this thing. Consider this case, that is this is the s1, which is distance between the rivet b and c, and this s2 is the distance between this c and d rivet, and also this g1 and g2, that is the distances between this b and c, that is this uh, distance in along the direction of the force, and this is the across the direction of force. So here by considering this case, so we are making the deductions. So total deductions are the sectional area of the holes, that is these three holes. We are considering this figure, these three holes. We are considering this a b c d e section, these three holes, minus this s1 square t divided by 4g1 for this region, s1 square t divided by 4g1 plus s2 square t divided by 4g2 for this region, because we are having the extended length over here. So the A net is A gross, that is gross cross sectional area of the particular uh, plate, minus the deduction, that is in bracket the sectional area of the holes minus this s1 square t divided by 4g1 plus s2 square t divided by 4g2, bracket complete. So this is the deduction. So here by putting all the values, that is b into t, that is a gross, that is n dt, that is the sectional area of the holes, and this is s1 square t divided by 4g1 and s2 square t divided by 4g2. So this is by taking t common. So if s1 equals to s2 and g1 equals to g2, suppose we are having the same these distances and same these distances, so the change will be the a net equals to b minus nd in this equation, b minus nd plus 2s square divided by 4g. We are multiplying it by 2. So in general a net equals to and into t. So in general a net equals to b minus nd plus n dash s square divided by 4g into t. So s is the staggered pitch, g is the gauge distance, n dash is the number of staggered pitch, and n is the number of holes in the zigzag line. So here on the page number 29 of IS 800, this formula has been given. So this is the deduction formula as we have seen earlier. Same the clause you can see over here. So this is the particular case of zigzag riveting, how to calculate the net sectional area of the zigzag riveting. So the net sectional area now in case of angles and T's, or the net effective area. So we are having this clause 4.2 on the page number 37. So net effective area for angles and T is in tension. So in case of single angle connected through one leg, net effective sectional area can be taken as A1 plus KA2 or A2K. So where A1 is the effective cross sectional area of the connected leg and A2 is the gross cross sectional area of the unconnected leg. Why it is the effective cross sectional area? Because sometimes we may have the deductions for the rivet holes also. So the K is 3A1 divided by 3A1 plus A2. Then again, in case of pair of angles back to back, So this is the first case and this is the second case over here. So in case of pair of angles back to back or a single T connected by the one leg of each angle or by the flange of the T, the on the same side of the gusset, the net effective area again A1 plus A2K, where A1 and A2 defined as in this clause and K is 5A1 divided by 5A1 plus A2. So this is the net effective area for the angles and T's. Next, for the double angles and T's placed back to back and connected on the each side of the gusset plate, that is like this, on the each side of the gusset plate. So to each side of the part of the rolled section, either or the gusset plate or the rolled section, the net area considered to be taken as A net equals to A gross minus deduction for these rivet holes. So here it is written, it is taken as computing the mean tensile stress for the effective area provided the member are connected together along their length as specified. So basically this is the A net in case of this. So why it is so? Because if you consider here, this from this plate the tension or the force is transferring to this section. So while doing so, this connected part is taking more force than this unconnected leg. That's why we have to give more weightage, or we have to decrease the effective area to consider this condition. Same in this case, this outstanding leg take less force than this connected leg. So because of which we are using these formulas. But in this case, what is happening, the CG of this particular member is coincide with this particular plate. So the force is within the CG of the particular member. So that's why it is, we have to consider it like this. Now again, these two clauses has been given where the angles are back to back but are not tack riveted or welded according to the clause we have seen earlier in the connections. The provision under this these 4.2.1.3 and 2 shall not apply, and each angle shall be designed as a single angle or connected through one leg only in accordance with the 4.2.1, that is according to this first clause. So here you remember, by the for these two there should be the tacking in between these connected legs. Then same in case of T's, if they are back to back but are not tack riveted as per the clause, so again we have to design it separately as per 4.2.1.3 shall not apply, and we have to design accordingly 4.2.1.2 by this, by using this thing. So these things should be considered while calculating the net effective area. One more thing is given in the note, that the area of leg of angle shall be taken as the product of the thickness and the length from the outer corner minus the half of the thickness. So while calculating the area of connected leg, we need to consider this much part only, that is this entire part we need to consider. So we have to deduct this corner, and in case of T we have to take care that, and in case of this so the one leg of the T, the product of the thickness and the depth minus the thickness of the table. Table is nothing but the flange. So here, while calculating the area of this particular section, that is this, we have to deduct this particular box while calculating the this A2. Remember this A2, that is outstanding leg. Then the channel and the I section. The net effective area of the single channel section uh, connected through the web is treated as a double angle connected to one leg each on the gusset. And when rolled or built up channel or I sections are connected only through a flanges, the web is found to be partially ineffective in resisting the applied tensile force. In such cases, the net area may be taken as the total area less the half of the web area. So in first case, that is this net effective sectional area of the single angle channel is connected through the web is treated as for the double angles connected by one leg, that is same as this case, double angle connected by one leg. And in case of this I section, as we have seen over here, this I section is there. If the connection is made with the this particular one wave, so we have to deduct the area, that is the total area less half the wave area, because this part is not playing any significant role for carrying the load, so that's why we have to do the things like this. So this is all about the effective areas. So the references for this particular lecture is the book by SK Duggal, that is Economic Steel Structure, and IS 800. I have to mention IS 800. And thank you for today's lecture. uh, we'll Coming lecture we'll see the design of the tension members.